Okay, so this first method that we have is solving by graphing. What I want to do is I am going to take my equation, so I'm going to turn on my calculator. I'm going to go to y equals, and then I'm going to type in the equation that I have right here. So I'm going to go x squared. Remember to get the squared symbol, it's right here. And then I'm going to do plus 6x plus 8. And then I don't worry about the equals 0 part. I graph it. The equals 0 part comes later for when I need to know what my answers are to the graph. So I can look, and my graph, when I graph it, should be over here. Now, to get my data points, I go second graph, and it'll take me to a table of values. Remember, it was mostly on the left side, so I need negative x values. So if I scroll, I can see I have some negative x values. So I'm going to write my table of values. I am going to do 5 points starting at negative 5. So negative 5, positive 3, negative 4, 0, negative 3, negative 1, negative 2, 0, and negative 1, 3. So I'm going to plot those points. Negative 5, 3, negative 4, 0, negative 3, negative 1, negative 2, 0, and 1, 3. Okay. I did not do a good job at drawing for my points, but the points are right. So then the final piece is getting my answer to the equation. The equation equals 0. So I'm looking for where it crosses the y-axis. That's not on this screen. So it's crossing at those 2 points. Notice they're also the same as the ones with the zeros for the y value. So I'm going to write x equals negative 4 and x equals negative 2 for my two answers here. Then I want to go ahead and do the same thing on number 3. So here's my equation. I'm going to move it over this way so I can take the values when I find them. Then I want to go to y equals. I wish the light was on hitting it just like this. Then I'm going to change it. So I have the new equation. So I have x squared minus 3x plus 2. I go graph. So this is hard to tell. Really quick. It's mostly on the right side of the graph, so I want mostly positive numbers when I go look at my table of values. Why is the light normally not this bad? I'm going to go to the second graph to see my table of values. So I want numbers mostly on the right side. Yeah, pretty good right here. So I'm going to do 5 values, and I'm just going to start at negative 1, 6, 0, 2, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 2. That's 5 points, right? Okay, I'm going to graph this. Another way to kind of pick points is if I look at these 12 and up, I can't plot those on that graph. I mean, I can. They'll be off the graph, so it doesn't make so much sense to plot points that aren't going to fit on the picture. Okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to go to the left one, up 6, 0, 2, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 2. Okay. I again could not draw through points. Okay, so I'm looking for where it's crossing the x-axis, which is those 2 points right there. Or again, the 2 with the y values of 0. So my answers here are going to be x equals 1, x equals 2. Okay. So I'll go plot this one. Go to y equals, clear out my equation, type in the new one, x squared plus 5x minus 14. I hit graph. This one's mostly on the, it's mostly on the left with a little bit on the right. So I am going to go to second graph, and so I'm going to pick only the points I can graph. So I need some left values because I saw I was practicing on the left. Okay. So I am going to write these down. I have negative 8, 10. That'll fit on my graph. I have negative 7, 0. Negative 6, negative 8. And then if I go lower, I have negative 1, or positive 1, negative 8, 0. No, I can't read. 1, negative 8, 2, 0, and 3, 10. So I'm just going to plot these points. So the negative 8 up 10, negative 7 is 0, negative 6 is negative 8, 1 is negative 8, 2 is 0, 3 is 10. This one's like way off. Okay. It makes a U shape, it's just very like that. Okay? What I'm most concerned here is by where it's crossing the x-axis. So these 2 points right there, which are going to be the ones with the zeros. So my answers here are x equals negative 7 and x equals 2. This method we're solving by square root, so I want to start off by getting all of my variable terms to one side and all of my number terms to the other. So on this one, I want to start off by subtracting 4 on both sides. I get 3x squared equals 2x squared. 13 minus 4 is 9. Then I want to subtract 2x squared on both sides. And I get x squared equals 9. I want to take the square root. And then I get x on the left. Because I'm taking the square root, it's going to be positive and negative. And the square root of 9 is 3. Same thing for number 3. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get all my variables on one side and all my numbers on the other. I'm going to subtract 2x squared on both sides. I get 2x squared on the left. And everything else stays the same. Then I want to subtract 6 on both sides. And I get 2x squared equals 162. I want to divide both sides by 2. And I get x squared equals 81. I take the square root of both sides to cancel out my exponent. And I get x equals plus and minus because I took the square root. And the square root of 81 is 9. That's my answer here. Same thing for number 4. I'm going to subtract my x squared over. I get 2x squared minus 5 equals 13. I add 5 to both sides. Then I get 2x squared equals 8. Just kidding. 18. Then I divide by 2 on both sides. I get x squared equals 9. I take the square root on both sides. I get x equals plus or minus 3. In this method, we're solving by factoring, so I'm looking for what multiplies to the n number and adds to the middle. So my multiples of 3 are just 3 and 1. 3 plus 1 gives me 4. So I'm going to do x plus 1 times x plus 3, and that still equals 0. Then I take each of my pieces in parentheses and I separate them. I can do this because of the zero product property. That is not an x. So I'm going to have x plus 1 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0. And then I just solve them. So I subtract 1 on both sides. I get x equals negative 1. So then I subtract 3 on both sides, and I get x equals negative 3. Okay, this one I'm looking for what multiplies to negative 20 and adds to negative 6. I have negative 9 and positive 3 multiplied to negative 27. Negative 9 plus 3 equals negative 6. So I have x minus 9. And then x plus 6. I'm going to take those two and separate them. The first one, I add 9 to both sides. I get x equals 9. The second one, I subtract 6 on both sides. I get x equals negative 6. Okay. Over here, I'm looking for what multiplies to positive 10 and adds to negative 7. 2 times 5 multiplies to 10. Negative 2 plus negative 5 gives me negative 7. Okay, then I split it up. I want to add 2 to both sides. I get x equals 2. I add 5 to both sides. And I get x equals 5. Okay, the last method is solving by using the square root method. Or completing the square root method. We already did the square root method. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to label A, B, and C. So my A here is 1. Oh no. Yeah. B is 12. C is 4. I want to subtract 4 on both sides because I want just the variables on the left. I have x squared plus 12x equals negative 4. Then my next step is to find half of my b value. So b was 12, so half of that equals 6. Then I want to go ahead and I want to add 6 squared to both sides. Because what I add to one side, I have to add to both. Okay. Then I want to square 6. So I have x squared plus 12x plus 36 equals negative 4 plus 36. I want to factor the stuff on my right side. So what we were doing on the last page. I'm looking for what multiplies to 36 and adds to 12. It's 6 and 6, and it will always be this red number that I found earlier. So then I have x plus 6. Since it was 2 of the same number, I have an exponent. On the right side, I add negative 4 and 36, which gives me 32. Then I want to take the square root of both sides to get rid of my exponent. I have x plus 6 on the left equals plus or minus, because I took the square root, of 32. I want to do my factor tree and see if it simplifies. I have 2 and 16. 2 and 8, 2 and 4, 2 and 2. So I have 2 pairs, oh, that's not this one. I have 2 pairs of 2. So those multiply to 4. And I have a leftover 2 on the inside. So that stays. Then, this isn't completely solved. I need to get x all alone. So I want to subtract 6 on both sides. I get x equals negative 6 plus or minus 4 square root of 2. Same thing on the bottom too. I'm going to start off by subtracting 3 on both sides because I want to get my x terms alone. So I have x squared plus 6x equals negative 3. I want to find half of my b value, which here is 6. So half of 6 is 3. I'm going to add 3 squared to both sides. Okay. 3 squared is 9. Okay. Then I want to factor my right side, so I'm looking for what multiplies to 9 and adds to 6. It's 3 and 3. So I have x plus 3 squared equals negative 3 plus 9 is 6. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I get x plus 3 on the left, plus or minus because I took the square root of 6. And then I want to subtract 3 on both sides, because I can't do anything with 6, it's turning 2. And I get x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 6. Okay. Same thing on number 4. I'm going to start off by adding 6 to both sides, because I have to do opposite its sign. So I have x squared plus 2x equals 6. And then I want to find half of 2, which is 1. So I'm going to add 1 squared to both sides. One squared is technically 1. So now I have x squared plus 2x, 1 squared is 1, and then I have 6 plus 1. On the left side, I'm looking for what multiplies to 1 and adds to 2. That's 1 and 1. So I have x plus 1 squared. And then on the right, 6 plus 1 is 7. Then I take the square root of both sides. I have x plus 1 equals positive negative square root of 7. Can't do anything with that because it's prime. Then I just subtract 1 on both sides, and I get x equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 7.